Hi folks, Ben Horner here again with Triple M Report Magazine and Michigan Grow. Today we're going to be going over another grow tip to help make you a better grower. Today we're going to be discussing nutrients and feeding your plant. We're going to be discussing the materials, how to apply it, and how simple and easy it can be. All right, so today we have a variety of different meters that we're going to use to test the water and moisture levels and pH levels. This is a pH meter that's going to test the amount of acidity in the water. This is the TDS meter that's going to be used to detect the total dissolved solids in the water. That's how much nutrients are in there. Then we have a couple soil meters. This is one for moisture, the amount of moisture in the soil. And this is a pH soil meter to tell us what the acidity of the soil is. Now we have some measuring cups and shot glasses. This is going to help us measure our nutrients. It's very important that we add just the right amount. Here we have some pH up and pH down. This orange one is an acid. This blue one's a base. This helps us control how acidic or how much alkaline is in the water. Very important to the balance and the health of a plant. Then we have a variety of different nutrients. Now you can use any kind of nutrient line that you want, and there's a lot of time and thought that goes into what one to use, but there's some basic principles that are applicable to all of them. Okay, so now we're going to look at purified water versus tap water. In the mason jar on the right, we have standard tap water. And then on the left, we have water that's been purified with reverse osmosis. And of course, here we have our handy dandy tester. This is going to tell us how much sediment and junk's in the water. We want it to be as pure as possible. Now, to start with, let's test the tap water. Wow. Parts per million, over 200, 230 parts per million. That's a lot of stuff in the water. Now, let's test the purified water. Wow, huge difference. Only 10 parts per million. That's much more pure water. That's the kind of water that I would want to feed my plants with. Okay, now we're going to be focusing on balancing pH. The proper pH is between 5 and 6 for proper cannabis growth. So right now we're going to be testing water and balancing it for proper pH. Neutral pH is 7. When you're below 7, you're more acidic. When you're above 7, you're less acidic. Right now this water is testing out at 9.8. We want to bring that down. The proper level for cannabis growth is between 5 and 6 on the pH scale, which means it's slightly acidic. In order to bring it down, we're going to use some pH down, which is basically acid. Now, after a second, the water will balance, and that's going to take us right at 5. If we go a little bit too low, we can always add a little pH up to bring it back up. Okay, now we've brought the pH up, using the pH up to 6, which is right where we want it. It's ready to be used now. As I said before, nutrients, there's lots of them. There's literally hundreds on the market, and you're going to have to take some time and do some research and decide which nutrient is going to be working best for you. Most nutrients are broken down into different components that are added at different ratios for different times in which plants are growing. Most of them have pretty basic mixing charts on how to mix those nutrients together. Today we're going to be focusing on how to properly measure your water to make sure that there's not too much nutrients in it, because that fundamentally is the biggest problem with people that are adding nutrients to their water, whether it's hydroponic or soil. They're either adding too little or too much. And too much will kill your plant. So now we're going to use the meter to measure parts per million. We started out with our pure water, with some of the bases right at 100 degrees parts per million. The appropriate amount for growing is between 1,000 and 1,800. All right. When you're in the beginning, stay low in the plant growth. So while in the vegetative cycle, when the plant's only a month or so old, stay around 1,000. Then gradually build up towards when you're flowering and when you're finishing your plant for maximum yield. Now, when we add the nutrients, you'll notice that the parts per million goes up very quickly. Now, as it totally dissolves into the water, you'll notice that it's approximately 1,400 parts per million. It's going to move up and down a little bit. You want to wait for a few minutes until it totally balances out. Now, there's some fundamental differences between hydroponic growing and soil growing. But adding nutrients to your plants, whether it's hydro or with soil, is both very important. The basic difference is that when you're adding nutrients to plants that have soil in it, is that you're going to use approximately half as much nutrients as you typically would with hydroponics, because the soil has some nutrients already built into it. But trust me, over the course of the life cycle of that plant, it's going to lose a majority of the nutrients that are in the soil, so adding nutrients are super important. Okay, now, when you're watering your plants, you want to water your plants almost every day. If it's a really big plant, you can water it almost twice a day. When you add nutrients, when it has soil, you only want to add the nutrients every other time you water. So one day water will be pure water, the next day water will be water plus nutrients. Now, when you water, you want to make sure that you have a decent amount of drainage and, so that the water will naturally drain out and it won't be overly wet. Now, with this meter here, I know that it's a little bit heavy on the moisture. As I see this water drain out, we'll see it slowly start to balance into the green zone, which is where we want it to be. These meters you can get very inexpensively. Now, another important thing to do is, although we're pH testing the water, we want to pH test the soil from time to time to make sure that the amount of pH in the soil is balanced correctly. When you're adding nutrients to your plants, whether it's with hydroponic or with soil, we have to remember that all of those nutrients are being delivered with salts. So as you continue to add nutrients, you're leaving behind salt deposits, all right? It's like really salty food. It's really hard to make it unsalty once you've added too much salt. Now, to remove the built-up salts and deposits that are left over from the fertilizers, every month we're going to use a flushing solution, regardless of whether or not it's soil or hydroponics. With soil, we're going to add water without nutrients every other feeding to prevent nutrient lock. With hydroponics, we add the nutrient water all the time, but flush once a month. Either or, flush once a month is super important to prevent nutrient lock. Now, wasn't that easy? I want you to check out some of the rest of the videos that we have on this site. Check out the rest of our site, www.mmrmag.com, MMRmag.com. We've got a lot of great stuff in the magazine coming up, both political, talking about our legislative, how we're going to protect our rights. Thank you for checking us out. We'll see you next time.